Now, I want to describe some of the construction on this shoe. Yes, you are looking right through it. As a matter of fact, it's kind of important that you are. We don't want much between the cable groups. That's a very thin scrim. It's very stretchy. It's like a stocking material. And the reason we want that is really just to keep the sand and the dirt out. It's a scrim upon which the embroidery lies, but we want it to be mobile because a foot strike, the foot's changing in dimensions and shape all the time. You want as much elasticity as possible. You just want the strings holding the weight. You can see a giant horizontal X that's running through the shoe here. That was to prevent backslide. The fiber we used on this particular one was Kevlar. We moved away from Kevlar in this instance because we found it was light sensitive to UV sunlight, and moved to Vectran, which we'll talk about in a minute. The white material down the side here is a nylon. It's it has a little give to it. It's very strong, but it has a little give to it. And again, in the forefoot, we've got Kevlar again to make sure that your foot stays anchored to that plate. And we're also very judicious about making sure that we have good knots at the top. Those laces are pulling directly on the strings. What you see is what you get in that construction. Some more detailed shots on the side. Now, clearly we knew we were onto something here. The change, of course, from panel construction is now we're actually programming a shoe. We're not doing a cut and sew. We're programming how the shoe comes together. I program where I want the cables. I can tune it like a performance instrument. I can change the densities of the cables, the type of tools I'm using in those cables. All of the structure of this shoe is stitched. Here's an example of the machine doing it. You can see it doing the jumps here, anchor stitch, coming down. Just here, it's doing its eye state. This is where the actual laces will be anchored into. And that gives you a visual reference to the jumps we're talking about. There are some rules we were able to change when we did this. Normally, shoes require a stiff cardboard piece in the back of the shoe. It's called a heel counter. We discovered that by using this fiber, it created a fiber basket. We didn't need the heel counter, so that weight was gone. We put a hole in the back of the shoe just to celebrate that. There's no liners. We don't really want other material fighting with the cable groups. It muddies the effect. We want those cable groups acting just as they want to act. Again, seeing through the side of the shoe. This is an early prototype of the model we're going to show you today. And just to give you a sense of strength, okay? This is a scale that it's measured in grams per denier, but you'll get the idea just looking at the numbers here. Here's some fibers that we're all familiar with. Polyester, strength is 5.6 grams per denier. Nylon, 7.8. And then there's this enormous gap between the beginning and the end where you get to the superfibers, the Kevlars. Here's Vectran. This is our material of choice. Vectran is 5 times stronger than steel per weight. It has amazing flex properties. You can flex it thousands of times and it never loses its strength. And very important for us, it has 1% elongation, barely anything in terms of elongation. Things like carbon fiber are stronger, but it's also very stiff and brittle. The composite industry that we all know and love isn't appropriate in this context. That's why you've never seen it really come into something soft like an upper. But this Vectran suddenly offers us the opportunity. Now, here's some high-speed video of a synthetic shoe coming down. All right? And you can see the stretch that's in the side of that shoe. Here is an upper made in Vectran. And I want to impress upon you something. First of all, that guy is enormous. I was in the lab when they did this test. And he's coming down in that shoe. Look at the size of his calves. It's a size 13 shoe. And you're seeing his black sock through the upper. A lot of people in the lab had to come out and watch this. This is amazing to see that amount of hold compared to the amount of stretch you saw on the other film. Give you an example of strength. This is embroidery thread, polyester embroidery thread. Here's the Vectran that we developed for this application. This is why this guy could do this. Now, we'll have this on hand for you to try tomorrow. This is amazing stuff. So when it comes down to any kind of elongation or give, let me give you this example. All of us have had maybe the understanding of what it feels like to run in sand. You have that slip back. It's energy loss. A professional cyclist usually has a very stiff but light frame because he doesn't want any energy loss in that bicycle frame if it has any flex. And in both examples that I just gave you is true of a track spike. You don't want to have any give. You don't want to have any slop on that footbed. You want to make sure that you're anchored precisely. So, in a foot strike, if I were able to give you just 1 millimeter better hold than what you've got, you just saw the footage of the foot sliding sideways. If I can save you just 1 millimeter, and you're running a meter pace around a track of 1,000 meters, that adds up to a meter at the finish line. Who wouldn't want any fraction of that? And if we can give an insurance policy like these materials to our athletes, who wouldn't want to take it? Now, back to this gold shoe. I never told you the weight of it. This was 112 grams in the Sydney Games. This is what we believe was the lightest shoe we could ever make. None of us believed that 100 could even be broken, because you would have something that basically would fall apart. And when you actually get to it, here is our shoe, the Nike Zoom Victory Spike. Now, this shoe is stronger than any shoes we've got in our line. It also is lighter by a large margin and will be for sale commercially. The weight is 92 grams. The interesting thing for us is we feel this is uncompromising. Normally, when you go this light, you give up strength, you give up support. We're not. It's probably equally, if not better, and it's definitely stronger. Highly stable and mobile. Normally, stability means a lot of bulk to the product. It means a lot of constraining straps to make it that stable. This is exceptionally stable, but because there's so little of it, there's nothing to really bunch up in your foot when it flexes. We have a lot of athletes saying, gosh, it feels like I have nothing on. It feels like I've got track spikes growing out of my feet. That's exactly where we want to be. As Sean says, he's had a lot of athletes comment to him, it feels like a second skin. It feels like I've got tendons down the side of my foot. And when you combine it with what Sean just showed you, the lunar foam, well, in the kitchen we like to think of this as a marriage made in footwear heaven. This is an astounding product. And there's reference to mention that this is the beginning of this paradigm. We're not going back. You can't do numbers like this and get lighter. We think we have a better way to build a shoe. I would hope at the 2012 Olympic Games that coming out in a panel-constructed shoe would be like playing with a wooden tennis racket today. This is the threshold of a whole new paradigm of footwear construction. These numbers are amazing to us today. Expect them to go lower, because I think we can play with this and get better at it, and we're excited. For the Beijing Olympic Games, we're looking forward to this first iteration of the product and the records that might be set. We've been very proud to show this to you today, and thank you for your time. We'll be on hand to answer questions tomorrow.